from Newport News. And for a second on this, we have the second constitutional amendment that's coming up about marriage equality as well. And on this one, my request for the body is I want you to think about your constituents, people back home who you know. For me, this vote on marriage equality is about constituent service. I'm thinking about Daryl and Bradley in Manassas Park, Chris and Brian in Manassas. I'm thinking about Heidi and Eflin in Gainesville, about Tracy, Lynn, and Sandy in Haymarket, all of whom have exercised their constitutional right to marry. And for 3 out of 4 of those couples, it wasn't just Augerfeld versus Hodges that allowed it. It was also Loving versus Virginia. They had to have 2 different Supreme Court decisions come in their favor to be able to have the right to marry. And now I'm thinking about my friends Tanya and Katharina, who are engaged, and they're going to be married soon. And they took their wedding photos in advance, their engagement photos, in the part of Caroline County where Richard and Mildred Loving lived. I think about them because this is what it comes down to. For your staffs on both sides of the aisle who identify as LGBTQ, for your friends, for your colleagues in your private jobs, for the pages who sit here in over 5 years, the number of them who've come up to me and said, thank you for fighting for my rights and for giving me visibility. I'm asking you to think about someone who maybe we have a lot of attorneys who are here. Think about your law partners. Think about your law partner's children. If you run a business, the people who come into your business. Right now, they have the ability to exercise their constitutional right to marry. But because of what is written in the Virginia Constitution, when you deprive them, when you say, no, we're going to keep this, what you're telling them is that you hope that one day a decision will come down that will hurt your constituents. Those words in the Supreme Court, in the Constitution of Virginia, don't help anybody by staying there. But they very much do hurt people. And it is with the intent of hurting people that they are to stay. When I think about what this means, and I think about the words of what Anthony Kennedy wrote in the decision for Augerfeld v. Hodges, it was so profound that at a wedding I went to about 6 years ago for a lesbian couple from Manassas, they actually read these words out loud. No union is more profound than marriage, for it embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family. In forming a marital union, 2 people become something greater than once they were. As some of the petitioners in these cases demonstrate, marriage embodies a love that may endure even past death. It would misunderstand these men and women to say they disrespect the idea of marriage. Their plea is that they do respect it so deeply that they seek to find its fulfillment for themselves. Their hope is not to be condemned to live a life of loneliness, excluded from one of civilization's oldest institutions. They ask for equal dignity in the eyes of the law. The Constitution guarantees them that right. It's time for our Constitution to do the exact same thing that the federal Constitution does at this point, and to reflect that reality. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I would tell you on a personal story on this. The decisions we make as politicians directly matter for someone to have the courage to be themselves and to live freely as themselves. In 2013, when the Defense of Marriage Act was coming up before oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court, many of you probably remember being on social media and seeing so many of your friends change their profile photos to that symbol, to that equality symbol. More people than you probably even thought you knew were on board, were actually there. For me, that was the moment where I realized that maybe it was going to be okay after hiding for so long from so many people, from the time I was a little kid. and being called every name you can possibly imagine, having to endure all of that and saying, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be vulnerable enough to be visible. And then once the decision actually came out and how everyone celebrated, and then how marriage equality changed that as well. And in 2012, even before that, when states were actually ratifying this and saying it's okay on a state-by-state basis. When we do the right thing, our constituents are emboldened to be themselves. Your vote for this doesn't make anyone gay. It doesn't make anyone lesbian. It doesn't make anyone bi. It doesn't make anyone trans, for that matter. It just allows them to know that their governing officials have their back, and that in our Commonwealth, where we are supposed to believe in that freedom, where we're supposed to believe in that liberty to marry the consenting adult of your choice, that you can do it, you'll be loved for it, you'll be accepted for it, and you will be embraced for it. And so, Mr. Speaker, for me, this vote is a constituent service issue, and I hope we all see it as the same. Let's do the right thing for our constituents. Let's pass this rule change, and let's have an affirmative right to marry go to the ballot box this November 8th. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.